Okay, lesson 5.1 is going to start out with what is called operations of functions. And essentially what we're going to be doing with operations of functions is you guys are going to be given two functions like f of x and g of x, and you are going to be asked to either add, subtract, multiply, or divide these two functions. Okay, so starting out with your addition, okay, if I have f plus g of x, that literally means f of x plus g of x. Okay? So when you guys see, and this is a new notation for us, but when you guys see that we've got f plus g of x, that literally means f of x plus g of x. So if I go down and I scroll down here and I look, you guys are given f of x equals 2x plus 3 and g of x equals 5x minus 2. And they've asked you guys to find f plus g of x. Well, our first step is to recognize f plus g of x just means f of x plus g of x. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what is my f of x. What is my f of x? Well, f of x is 2x plus 3. So I'm going to have 2x plus 3 plus my g of x, which my g of x is 5x minus 2. Oops. 5x minus 2. Okay, so f plus g of x, it's just f of x plus g of x, so we end up with 2x plus 3 plus 5x minus 2. Now, when I'm adding, if I've got an addition sign here in the middle, we really don't need to worry about these parentheses. All you guys are going to do is you're just going to combine like terms. So 2x and 5x, that's going to end up giving me a 7x, and then a positive 3 and a negative 2 gives me a positive 1. So f plus g of x equals 7x plus 1. And that's what we have to do for addition. Now there are three other operations that we're going to have to worry about, and those would be subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay, so for subtraction, subtraction is f minus g of x. Well, f minus g of x means f of x minus g of x. Okay, we also have multiplication. Multiplication is going to be fg of x. That just means we're going to take f of x times g of x. And then lastly, we have f divided by g of x. I've got division. If I have f divided by g of x, I'm going to have f of x divided by g of x. Okay, so we'll work down through. We've got three more examples of each. Okay, so again, they've given you guys your f of x and your g of x. They've given that to you guys right here. Okay, but this time they've asked us to find f minus g of x. Now we're being asked to find f minus g of x. So remember, f minus g of x is just f of x minus g of x. Okay, now this one does have something that I worry a little bit about you guys with. Okay, oops, I had the wrong button pressed there. Sorry about that. Write that in. We've got f of x minus g of x. Okay, so I'm going to take my f of x minus my g of x. So it's going to look exactly like our previous problem. Sorry, I'm messing up my colors. 2x plus 3 for my f of x. But instead of having a plus sign in the middle of them, now I'm going to have a minus sign in the middle. And that minus sign is going to have one extra step here. Okay, because when I was adding them, I said that we could just get rid of those parentheses, right? But if I have a subtraction sign in here, I cannot just get rid of those parentheses. I have to remember that I'm going to have to distribute that negative. So this is a 2x plus 3 minus 5x plus 2. Okay, so do not forget to distribute your negative. This is what I'm worried about you guys forgetting to do. Do not forget to distribute that negative. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and finish up by combining my like terms. 2x, negative 5x. That's going to give me a negative 3x. Positive 3 and a positive 2 is going to give me a positive 5. So I've got f minus g of x equals negative 3x plus 5. Okay? Two more examples then to do. I've got f g of x. Okay, so that means that my f of x and my g of x are being multiplied together. This means that I'm going to take f of x times my g of x. Okay, so I'm going to have 2x plus 3 for my f of x times 5x minus 2. Okay, so when I'm multiplying these, we're going to have to FOIL for this one. We're going to have to distribute. I'm going to take 2x times 5x, 2x times negative 2, gives me 10x squared, minus 4x. 3 times 5x gives me a positive 15x. 3 times negative 2 gives me a negative 6. And then I just need to combine like terms, and I get that 10x squared plus 11x minus 6. So fg of x, whoops, equals 10x squared plus 11x minus 6. Okay, and then finally I've got f divided by g of x. Okay, f divided by g of x, that just means f of x divided by g of x. This one might end up being your favorite because I think it's the easiest to do. You're going to put your f of x, which would be 2x plus 3, divided by your g of x, which is 5x minus 2. And very, very, very rarely are you guys going to be able to simplify these. So when I do f divided by g of x, that's my answer. I don't have to simplify anything. Okay? So that's the first part of your homework there. Addition, you're just adding the two functions. Subtracting, you're subtracting to the two functions. Multiplication, you're multiplying. Division, you're dividing. Okay? So what are we going to do if there's a number? Okay? So if you guys look, we are given the exact two equations here. So I already know that f plus g of x equals, I already know that f plus g of x equals, forgot what it was, 7x plus 1. Show that just to make sure we got it. F plus g of x equals 7x plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down here, and I know that x plus g of x equals 7x plus 1. But then now, there's a 2 in there. Okay, so if there's a 2, that means there's a 2 in there, and all that means is I just need to put a 2 in there for my x. So this is going to become f plus g of 2, which makes this a 7 times 2 plus 1. So that's going to give me 7 times 2 is 14 plus 1. So I find that f plus g of 2 is 15. Okay? Oops. I just realized that's a typo. That's just supposed to say find. Sorry about that, guys. You can mark that out. It's just supposed to say find f minus g of negative 3. So again, our first step, find f minus g of 3. Well, I need to know what f minus g of x is, which we already found. F minus g of x was a negative 3x plus 5. So this equals negative 3x plus 5. So if I'm going to plug in a negative 3, I'm just plugging it in to those spots there. So that's going to be negative 3 times negative 3 plus 5. Negative 3 and negative 3 gives me 9 plus 5, and that gives me 14. So f minus g of negative 3 is 14. Okay, so again, I know I'm going kind of quick on this, guys, but if we have a number in here, that just means we plug that number in for the x. Number in here, I plug that number in for my x. Okay, so nothing tricky. It's all stuff that you guys have done before back on our first test. Okay, f times g of 1, and just so you guys are aware, remember f times g of 1 equals f of 1 times g of 1. Whoops. Okay. And the reason I'm saying that is that if I have fg of x, that equals f of x times g of x. Okay, so if you don't want to figure out what f times g of x is, you could also look at each of these individually. So if I wanted to, I could say, okay, first I need to find f of 1, and f of 1 will be 2 times 1 plus 3. Okay, and that's just looking back up top there. Okay, 2x plus 3 for f of x. So f of 1 is 2 times 1 plus 3. So that's going to give me 2 plus 3. That gives me 5. And then I can look at g of 1. Whoops. And g of 1 is going to be f times 1 minus 2. So that's going to be 5 minus 2, and that equals 3. Okay, so my answer is just 3 times 5. 15 would be my answer for that problem up there. Okay, but like we said, we already know, scroll down a little bit more, I'll just do it in a different color. We already found out that fg of x equaled, was it 10x squared minus 11x plus 6, I think? Plus 11x minus 6. So I had my signs wrong on that. Plus 11x minus 6. So again, if I wanted to, fg of 1, 10 times 1 squared plus 11 times 1 minus 6. 10 times 1 squared, well 1 squared is just 1, that's just an 11 minus 6. 10 times 1 is 10, 11 minus 6 is 5, and I get 15. So, two different ways you can do it. You can find out individually what f of 1 is, find out individually what g of 1 is, and then multiply them. Okay, or if you've already found f of g times x, you can just plug in your 1 to that equation there. So there's two different ways that you guys can solve this problem here. Same with your addition, I could find f of 1, g of 1, and then add them together if I'm being asked to add there. Okay, so it's up to you which one you guys want to do. I just figured since we already had the one done, it made sense to do it that way. And then we have one more problem left, and then you guys can get started on your homework. Okay, so last one, find, forgot to take off the domain again. Sorry about that, guys. I borrowed this from College Algebra PowerPoint. It's just supposed to say find. Okay, so find f divided by g of -5. Well, recall f divided by g of x was (2x plus 3). Whoops, 2x plus 3 over 5x minus 2. So now I'm just going to plug in a -5. 2 times -5 plus 3. 5 times -5 minus 2. And that gives me a -10 plus 3 over a -25 minus 2. And I get -13 over -27, which those two negatives would cancel, and I just get 13 over 27. Okay, if you need to pause the video, go back to the spots you had questions on, but that's more or less what we are doing today with lesson 5.1. Homework is down at the bottom. Good luck.